Welcome again to my training and mentoring series, GPA. Today's topic is academic writing, because at tertiary level, academic writing is compulsory. For any assignment, whether it's a journal, an essay, or a research paper, you must maintain the standards, and any deviation from those standards can result in low marks or failure. Unless you're a first year student, chances are you would have already done levels 1 and 2, but students admit that when it comes to applying the rules, they become overwhelmed because now the lecture is no longer lenient, and any breach can result in punitive measures. So what are these rules? Well, I've listed 10, but if you go to various texts or websites, you will find that there's a range between 7 and 12 or 6 to 10. So I have listed the following, and I think you can use it as your checklist to ensure that you maintain your standards throughout. And again, you revert to your course notes, you check with your lecturer and ensure that you are applying the rules in every assignment that is given to you. So I've listed focus, structure, language, tone, diction, academic conventions, ethical standards, ensuring that your paper is thesis driven, and also that you should maintain focus as you go through your paper. With focus, it's about establishing a clear point of view for your argument or your research question, and you do this by your thesis statement. So even in a thesis statement, you have a checklist, which is your main idea of the paper. You must express your point of view, and we'll get to how you go about expressing your point of view. But for now, it's really about what is your position, what is the direction of your argument. You must establish in your thesis paper your purpose of the paper, and you can test the purpose by asking yourself the question. When you attempt to answer the question in caption, you will set yourself the direction in which you want to go, and you should be able to identify what is the solution you are proposing. We talk about maintaining the focus, which is important for you and for your audience. Your audience wants to stay focused also, because you don't want to have them going in different directions and then unable to follow the paper because it becomes complicated. So ask yourself, what is the most important piece in my paper? Am I remaining on track with that? Does it stay connected with the rest of points, with the rest of the paper? And this really is about helping your reader to understand the entire piece of writing. And this goes into structure also, because you need to have a logical flow of ideas. It must be formal, and the introduction should include an overall direction of how the rest of the paper is intended to go and how it is organized. And remember the basic elements: there is the introduction, there is the body, and there is the conclusion. And each paragraph should logically lead to the next. Make it clear to your reader how the various parts of the paper are related to each other. We talk about language. Language is formal, it is objective, it is impersonal. Now, if it is to remain impersonal, it means that you cannot use slangs. Slangs are not allowed, neither are colloquialisms, neither is syntax, everyday syntax like text language or cliches or contractions. So typical cliches or expressions like "at the end of the day," "in recent years," "beyond a shadow of a doubt," that is not allowed. Now I have to make a point about impersonal. Seek guidance from your lecturer for the writing specifics, because in some cases, especially when you get a tone, some areas allow the first person. So this impersonal is really about not imposing your opinion. Your opinion is strengthened by your arguments. So when we talk about tone, we're talking about the writer's styles and attitudes. Remember, when people read on your paper, they will get a certain feeling. They will get an idea as to what you feel about the area of research, the position that you are taking. But this is not expressed in any sort of confrontational language or biased language. So by tone, according to APA, this is one of the authors or authorities on academic convention. APA is usually for social sciences or some disciplines within social sciences. It must be presented in a non-combative manner. That is to say, you should not be confrontational in your tone to demean anyone or to discredit persons. Again, this comes out in the strength of your arguments, and the strength of your arguments is based on the type of evidence you use. So again, when it comes to tone, you are to avoid exaggerations, hyperboles, making broad generalizations, using adverbs, using qualifiers like definitely or a little. Avoid emotional language. If you're talking about, let's say, poverty, you advise against using phrases like it is so heartbreaking. Avoid inflammatory language, which goes along with exaggeration. So according to APA again, essentially when you are writing, you really should be unbiased, you should be scholarly, and your work is supported by evidence. So when we talk about diction, we are talking about the choice of words. Keep in mind, words have different denotations, which is or if they have the same denotation, it means it can become unclear, it can become ambiguous. By denotation, we talk about dictionary meaning. Also, words can have connotations, and in fact, they have the same connotation, but different shades of a word can place it in a different context or bring a different understanding by the reader. And so, let's say, for example, we are talking about qualifying as opposed to illegible. Now, both areas suggest allowing or giving allowance for entry. Look at the word peculiar as opposed to different, adolescent as opposed to immature. Words, different shades, they may be aligned to similar meanings or interpretation, but in academic writing, you must be specific. So use concrete words to convey a specific meaning, and this is to avoid confusing the reader and not having to explain further. Punctuation is one that is pretty tricky because students find it ironic that lecturers nitpick when it comes to punctuation because they feel that it's secondary school punishment. But no, punctuation is important in academic writing. So you must pay attention to the use of semicolons, colons, inverted commas, parentheses, what we call brackets, and punctuation like the exclamation mark is discouraged because it's not that you want to come across as overexcited to express the degree of emotion or seriousness. Again, it's about how you structure, and it's about how this precise use of words as opposed to relying on punctuation like the exclamation mark. And the semicolon and the colon are very important when it comes to listing ideas or providing a sequence of same ideas or names or using long complex sentences. What are the conventions we talk about? Conventions are An academic writing convention is really about the guide of the guide to present your work. So earlier on I talked about APA, there's also Chicago, there's also MLA. So these are the academic conventions, and each discipline will guide you as to how you go about with the same structuring and punctuation, particularly when it comes to citing your sources. This is what academic convention is about. So yes, you must specifically refer to the guidelines of your discipline. But generally, even though they may deviate, each convention will advise you to use a formal style and to cite your sources throughout. And then there's in-text citation, and there's the bibliography, again with citations and endnotes. You must check with your faculty, be guided by your lecturer. The evidence-based reasoning that we talk about is really expressing your point of view, but with solid arguments. These arguments must be well informed. Well informed meaning that you make use of your literature review. Again, remember I talk about your course notes and additional reading. Particularly with a literature review, you see the line of argument. Argument meaning the case presented for your research, the question that you want to answer. The quality of your evidence will determine the strength of your argument. And the challenge is to convince your audience of the validity of your opinion. And this is done through well-documented, coherent, and logically structured piece of writing. And it is particularly important when you are proposing solutions. Thesis-driven means that you maintain a direction and a perspective to your point, to your research question. It makes use of the relevant themes and the relevant lines of argument and your various theses. When you are proposing, you are gathering data. When you are suggesting a method, you must gather the relevant theories and the body of knowledge to guide your decision making. Logical structure in academic writing will talk about a consistent flow of the presentation of your cases, of your evidence. It is done as a matter of fact, when it comes to the structure, you also have to apply the rules of the sequence, which is an introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Remember, the paragraphs and the sentences must connect logically, and the introduction lays out the direction for the rest of the paper. It also gives scope to your paper. With that in mind, you must provide background information and ensure that your thesis statement is presented early. The body should also offer points to support the thesis statement, and you need to elaborate on those points and summarize your points in the conclusion. Applying research skills, that is fundamental. Even though it takes a lot of time to research one topic sometimes, think of it as a journey. Think of it as teaching yourself something new. It is about applying critical thinking skills. And yes, it is time consuming, but it really should give you that sense of achievement, that sense of accomplishment, to know that you would have taken up the task to investigate a particular topic, to get more information and present it in such a way as to solidify a proposal that you are putting forward, to have persons revisit policy, reconsider the application of a particular theory. that leads to work ethic, because if you are to present a paper, you are to put forward a proposal, you are to do an investigative piece, then you don't rely, or you don't try to impose. It's not about imposing your opinion. It is about finding all the available evidence, presenting all the available information in a logical manner, and reflecting to the audience that you would have invested your time and your passion into your research. So when you take on a project, ensure that you put your best effort at all times, and that you imprint a mark of excellence. Excellence meaning that you consider to be a professional body of work, you consider it to be one that requires responsibility, and you are going to ensure that you are taken seriously. Remember, I said these are guidelines, and I also said that academic writing is something that needs to be practiced, and so don't just attack your assignments. You can practice on your own with various topics. Challenge yourself on each occasion. When you're doing it, follow this checklist also. Choose a topic, think, brainstorm over the idea, do the research, write a thesis statement about it, plan it, outline it, keeping in mind that there's a body and a conclusion, revise it, also reflect as in critical thinking, edit and proofread. And remember, the author cannot be the only proofreader. I hope these guidelines help. Some areas will require some additional discussion, but for now, I hope you use it to really improve your standard in academic writing. I look forward again to topics that relate to pursuit of academic excellence. Again, everyone, be safe, be blessed.